Hey guys, welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and thanks for joining me for today's episode. And it's getting that time of year, guys. It's going to be here before you know it, probably about another month or so. We're going to get into bladed jig season. Chatterbait, bladed jig, earth shaker, a new bladed jig I'm going to show you guys today. And I want to give everybody sort of a refresher course. We're going to sort of go over this today and going to give you some really good foundational tips and some things that have really worked for me. And that's basically what I'm sharing here, guys. I've been fishing a bladed jig since they came out, over 20 years ago now. And I've had a lot of success at it. I've won a lot of money doing it. And I've found some things that have just worked for me along the years that I've sort of developed on my own a little bit, experimented. And I'm going to share that with you guys in today's video here. Also, guys, to get started, a couple quick things I want to remind you of. We do have my winter and spring Fish the Moment lake map breakdowns up for sale on the fishthemoment.com website. I'll put that link in the description, guys. These are maps I built that give you some good fishing places to download on your GPS unit on lakes across the country with tips and advice on how to fish each spot. So you can check that out there. And also, guys, thank you very much for everybody that has been using and bookmarking all of my links I put in the description, subscribing to the channel, that whole 9 yards. Really appreciate that. Okay, guys, I want to talk a little bit about, you've heard me talking about, guys, the Bassanova makes a really good bladed jig, and they came out with a new one here. This is called the Jaw Tightener. And they've got two different kinds. They got the Earth Shaker and the Jaw Tightener. The Earth Shaker is connected with a split ring there. The Jaw Tightener is connected directly to the eye of the jig there. And each of them offer a different type of vibration. One is a tighter vibration. The new one, the Jaw Tightener's got a little tighter vibration, and the Earth Shaker's got a little bit wider one. You can get these, guys. You can't get them at Tackle Warehouse, but I'll put the Bassanova link in the description of this video if you guys would like to check out one of those and get some of those Earth Shakers and Jaw Tighteners. And I'll have my other bladed jig links in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description. But that's what we're going to be talking about today, guys, bladed jig fishing. And I want to go over just a broad variety of things that are really going to help you out. Some of the most important highlights of it. So I'm going to get into that in today's video. Okay, first of all, let's talk a little bit about colors. Colors are critical, like any other lure out there, as far as getting the most of them. And there's a lot of different variations that different companies make on colors of bladed jigs. Bassanova makes a lot of different colors. There's three primary, when I'm talking about colors, there's three primary color patterns that I'm talking about. Now, there's different variations in it. One is some type of a shad pattern like this, and you're going to have different, type of blade colors and different mixes of pearls and whites and that type of stuff. But some type of a shad imitator, which is usually pearl or white, it can have a silver blade or one painted like this. And then you've got some type of a natural green pumpkin with either a green pumpkin or a black blade, something along these lines here. And then you have what I consider, some type of a darker color, like a black. Now, the black is a pretty specific situation we're going to talk about with. And the natural color, when you're talking about a green pumpkin like this actually doubles as two different type of prey. It doubles as a perch and it doubles as a crawdad. If you use colors and variations like green pumpkin or brown with orange, that can, crawdad imitator, and some of the natural looking colors like with the greens, if you have a little, orange or chartreuse or something like that, it can resemble a perch. But those are here's my three primary colors that I use right here in this type of a variation. Now, there's other different oddball colors that work pretty good. Like I do like pink a lot of times in off-colored water, and the chartreuse blade like this works really good in off-colored water. These are both the Bassanova Earth Shakers here, but I do use some of the brighter color blades if the water visibility is like, less than a foot and a half or something like that. But overall, these three basic variations are going to be my three colors based upon a lot of different conditions: time of year, water clarity, sky conditions, and I want to sort of go over that in today's video. Okay, so the first thing that you have to do with your bladed jig is once you pick your color, you've got to get the right trailer and the right trailer color. Now, the trailer that I use, guys, is this Zoom Shimmy Shad. I have found that it hadn't been out very long. This is my favorite bladed jig trailer, the Zoom Shimmy Shad. I'll link this in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description. And I usually try to match it up in correlation with the color of the bladed jig. So say for example, on a shad pattern, I'm gonna use, some type of a shad pattern, shimmy shad like this. So this is gonna be, my setup for that. And I'm talking about the conditions once you get it rigged up. And then on my green pumpkin ones, obviously I'm gonna use some type of a green pumpkin or orange. Let me show you what this one looks like here with the green pumpkin on there. This would be like a really good color, and we'll get into that in a second, but that's a really good color there. And then also they make the shimmy shad comes in this orange looking color. Now this orange is going to be really good like in pre-spawn period. And also sometimes I'll use something like that. Gives a little bit more color, and we'll go, like I said, over each one of these specifically in a second. And then finally, when I'm using the black one, I like the black Zoom Z-Craw. The Z-Craw is a really good trailer on a bladed jig. Something about it, I don't know what it is. I just like the Z-Craw trailer on a black one over the shimmy shad like that, and that can be really good at times there. So that's our basic color setup. Okay, now let's talk about the specific set of conditions as far as water clarities and lighting conditions that each one of these bladed jigs works good in. First of all, shad patterns, something like this. Shad patterns, to me, I have had my best success on it, usually in the post-spawn, like when that water temperature is over 65 degrees. So from about the late part of April into June, I do pretty good on the shad pattern. The shad are spawning like in May a lot of times. Bass are feeding on shad after the spawn. That time of year, in correlation with some off-colored water. This is a color that I do not use in clean water very much. If I'm gonna be using some type of a shad pattern like this, I want that water visibility to be less than 2 feet. In correlation, usually with some type of a lower light condition, depending upon how dirty the water is specifically. If the water visibility is like down to around 8 or 10 inches, you can catch them on a bright day, but if it's closer to 2 foot visibility on a shad pattern, it really helps, if you have a little bit of a cloudy condition. Now the green pumpkin one here, any type of a natural brown or green pumpkin, this is a good color in a little bit clearer water. So I will use the green pumpkin in water visibilities between 2 to 4 foot. That's really good for that. Green pumpkin can be good or brown, can be good in a wide variety of light intensities. It can be good in sunny days, cloudy days. It's just a really good natural looking color, for fishing a little bit cleaner water. And also the green pumpkins, they're gonna work pretty good for me, sort of more in the pre-spawn and the spawn period of the year. And then finally the black, guys, the black is more, it has a more limited application. This is a really good bait at night. If you guys like to night fish for bass, a black bladed jig like this is deadly at night, but also a black bladed jig is really good in any type of tannic acid water. So if you have water like Florida, for example, where you got that black, clean tannic acid water, black is really, really good in the tannic acid water. And also black is good in very dirty water. So if you're fishing water visibility that is what I consider dirty, say 4 to 6 inches of visibility, something about visibility about like that, 4 to 6 inches, a black one really silhouettes itself and stands out really, really good. And also black is good right off the bat in the morning during a low light condition, like when the sun just come up 30 minutes later, got a lot of shade on the water, black can be pretty good. And also guys, you won't catch as many fish on black, but the quality of the fish, if you can get them to bite a black bladed jig, the fish are usually a little bit bigger. Okay, so that's the conditions and everything they work the best in. Now, another thing, and here, this is just a broad foundational. This video could go 8 hours long, but I just want to sort of give you guys some of the highlights of things that will really help you. That's one thing there. Next thing to remember is your rod and reel setup. There's only 2 pound tests of line that I use with any bladed jig. I use 17 pound Seaguar and VizX fluorocarbon or 20 pound test Seaguar and VizX fluorocarbon. If I'm wanting to get the bladed jig, like slow rolling it, in a little bit deeper water over the top of grass beds or trying to get it down a little deeper, I'll go with the 17. If I'm fishing shallow targets, say I'm throwing it up in between the pads of a lily pad lane or something like that, or next to a lay down tree, I'll go to 20. The rod is really important too. I use a 7'11" that Megabass launcher. You want to use a medium action rod with a bladed jig. You do not want to use a stiff tip rod. This is one of the biggest mistakes that's going to cost you bass, is because if you have a stiff tip rod, you're going to jerk that bait away from that fish way too quick. And ever since I went to a medium action, fairly soft tip, my bite to land ratio went way up. So I'll link all that stuff in the description, all the rods. And then I use that Lew's. I've been using this one here, guys. I'll link this too. This has become my favorite reel. This is that Lew's Custom Pro right here. This is the reel that I match it up with. So that's the equipment. Okay, now that's gonna get you set up. And the next thing, let's talk a little bit about retrieves on a bladed jig, because you got a lot of different retrieves based upon what you're trying to accomplish. And there's several different ones I'm gonna sort of go through. Now, the first one I use is what I call the pumping motion. Now, the pumping motion is a really good way to fish a bladed jig if you have aquatic vegetation. So what I'll do with it, is I'll make my cast out there. I'll let the bladed jig hit the bottom, just like I would a jig. And then once it hits the bottom, I simply pump it up off the bottom, reel down, let it fall on a fairly tight line, pump it up like that, let it fall on a tight line, pump it up. So what it looks like is that bladed jig, you'll pump it up and it'll go up like that, and it'll sort of like slowly fall down, pump it up like that. And there's something about this thing coming in and out of the grass that those fish will hammer this thing as it falls back down. I mean, a lot of times when you fish it like that, like when you pump it up and bring it back down, when your line's falling back down, your line will jump like 6 inches in the air where they just held that thing in. And this is really good around grass during the pre-spawn period of the year. Okay, the other way I like to fish a bladed jig is what I call just the slow roll technique. Now this is usually, again, sometimes it can work around submergent vegetation. So it works a little bit better if the water's a little bit warmer. If I'm slow rolling it down the side of a riprap bank or a rocky bank where I'm trying to get that bait deeper, I'm just throwing it out there like that, and as soon as it hits the water, based upon how deep, I start the crank and I'll pull a little bit and take the line up like that. I'll pull a little bit, reel maybe 5 or 6 cranks and pull. But what I'm doing is I'm using this cranking technique and pulling technique, cranking and pulling like that, keeping that bait, down closer to the bottom, sort of the slow roll. And then finally, when the fish are really aggressive and when the fish are in shallow water, I'm using a faster, sort of like a burning retrieve. So let's say, for example, the fish are higher up in the water column, water's warmer, it's cloudy, the fish are a little bit more aggressive, or maybe I'm fishing along the edge of a weed line. I'll cast it out there, keep the rod tip high, and just burn it fast like that with a stop and go retrieve. So what that looks like where it's coming through the water, it's just staying up high like this, almost like you're burning a spinnerbait. And then a lot of times they'll come up and hammer it. But most of the time, I'm gonna say that probably 75% of the time, I use the slow rolling, pull, stop, retrieve. Just that second one I showed you, 75% of the time. And then mixed between that, the other 25% would be the pumping motion or the burning motion. And you just sort of have to let the fish tell you what they want. And it's the same with the color. It's like when you're trying to determine a bladed jig color, you have to let the fish tell you what they prefer. You can start out with some of the basic things that I'm talking about, but just experiment a little bit. Now, one other thing as far as, and this is super important when you get a bite, and I had to learn the hard way, because when I first started fishing a bladed jig, I lost tons of fish on them. I mean, they'd hit it and I'd miss them, or I'd have them on for 5 or 6 cranks and they'd come off. I just lost a ton of bass on a bladed jig. And I finally got watching Brett Hite, who is probably the best bladed jig fisherman in the world. And I started watching him, how he fished the bladed jig. And what Brett did and what worked for me, because I'm gonna give him complete credit on this, is when you cast out there and you're working that bladed jig like that and you get a bite. Now the bite on a bladed jig, it can be a violent strike, or it can feel just like a heavy limb or something on the water. But I'd be cranking it like this and I'd get a bite and I'd just set the hook like that. And that's how I was losing them. And I got watching Brett Hite, and this is how he does it when a fish bites him. He'll be reeling like this. All of a sudden, you don't even know he's got a bite. He'll start reeling, and then he'll just step back and start reeling like that. He just like takes a step back and starts reeling faster. that is his hook set, because by doing that, it allows that softer rod tip like that to flex momentarily, allowing that bait to get a little bit deeper in that fish's mouth, and it works. It works every single time. So anyway, guys, that's just a few basics. That's a real brief little seminar on bladed jig fishing. What I just covered there as far as the color and trailer and equipment and how you work it and how you set the hook, those are the most important foundational elements of bladed jig fishing. And I think if you implement that, it's really going to help your success out. So hope it works, guys. We'll talk later.